Welcome to Portland.
It's a pressure to be back.
All right. Since everybody has already seen just above this little screen what the details of where the documentary is going to be and stuff like that, the thing I want to ask you first is, when I looked at it, I was expecting to see your piece, Defiant Requiem, that people in Portland here are familiar with since it had its world premiere here, but that's not what that is.
No. No, this is a documentary about the legacy of the arts and humanities at Terezin as practiced by the prisoners. Just a little background. In 1939, the Jews were excluded from the concert halls, they were excluded from theaters, they couldn't teach, they couldn't perform, they couldn't be published, and many of the critical professions, medicine for example, they couldn't practice their critical professions either. So there was only a hop, skip, and jump from there to deportations of Jews to a ghetto concentration camp, Terezin, which is only about 40-some miles away from Prague. Once they put all these people, all these professional people in that same place, something chemically reacted. And when it became possible, first it was sub rosa, and then it became possible out in the open for them to start performing again, start writing music again, painting again, acting, designing cabaret, lecturing. They gave 2,400 lectures in 3.5 years on every conceivable subject. 530 prisoners were the lecturers. You and I cannot name a subject that was not included. And as a matter of fact, the subject that was most often lectured about, literature. 310 lectures on literature alone, in addition to Maimonides, Aristotle, Kant, Rousseau, Beethoven, etc., etc. Now, this is not concerts. This is lectures. Yeah. This is the practicing of humanities. In the arts, there was opera, 38 performances of Smetana's Bartered Bride, 52 performances of the children's opera Brundabar, 16 performances of Verdi's Requiem, which became The Volcano. Yeah. What happened is in 3 years or so, the percolation that was taking place, all the percolating that was done through the arts and humanities. Then Raphael Schechter, this extraordinary conductor, wonderful pianist, great vocal coach, said, you know, to validate this society as one of the leading arts societies in all of Nazi Europe, and it was this small concentration camp, we need a major project. One which has political and social overtones as well as artistic. So he went to the Verdi Requiem, and the Verdi Requiem was the culmination of so much that was going on in the camp. So that's why that happened. Well, this documentary takes into account the Terezin Arts and Humanities Society and why the Verdi Requiem, not just what it said, but why it was done, what it meant, and what effect it had on not only the prisoner audiences, but the singers themselves. And so it's an 85-minute, 87-minute documentary which touches on all of that.
I think one of the most amazing parts of it is that a lot of it is told by the survivors.
Yes, they are the storytellers,
yeah.
And they validate each other, which is really wonderful. And I know everyone who was interviewed, and I've talked with them at length myself. I did most of the interviews. Someone said, these interviews are wonderful. How did you get them to open up? And I said, well, here's the technique I used. I said, now this mic, and that's all I said. Then they grabbed it, because frankly, as so many of them have said, they've been looking for a voice.
Yeah.
The story has not been told. Yeah. This is one of the truly most important stories of the Holocaust era. Yeah. That they could sing what they couldn't say, that they responded to the worst of mankind with the best of mankind, and that practicing the arts and humanities gave them dignity, hope, courage, and just an igniting, a reignition of the life force, which when they came to the camp, went out in many of them, because as some of them had said, once they walked into the gates of Terezin, they knew that life would never be the same. And it wasn't. I mean, it wasn't in terms of nutrition, medical attention, protection from the winter. It wasn't. And yet they found not just comfort, but inspiration to keep living. Their way of fighting back was to stay alive.
The performance of Verdi's Requiem itself is in the camp itself. What was that? I mean, I know what it was like because I did the TV story with you when you premiered your piece here, and I know what you were like then, and what it was doing to you. What was it like for you to be there and actually do it, perform there?
It was very, 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 very difficult. I could say, oh, it was tough. No, it was more than that. First of all, the one thing I had to be careful about is that I couldn't allow myself to lose it because there were too many people depending on me.
Yeah.
I had a large chorus, I had a huge orchestra, I had soloists, I had actors, and there were tech people galore. I mean, I was kind of commanding an army, and I needed to be what they needed me to be. And that meant in telling the story and in recreating the music. So it was very, very difficult because I was 50 feet away from where Raphael Schechter had his hovel, where he lived for 4 years. And on the grounds where all this took place, and in the place where it all took place. And so the night before we performed it, there was an enormous storm during the rehearsal. And it was just as we were getting into the Dies Irae, the wrath of God, the day of wrath. And in this, I can't call it a concert hall, it was a riding academy. It's where from the 1860s on, it's where they taught soldiers to fight on horseback. And the windows were ancient, and they started shaking like this, and the breadth of nature's uprising is consistent with what happened to me when, in better weather, I went to the cemetery, the common grave, one rectangular grave, which is quite lengthy, where there are 1,500 souls unmarked in that grave. And I just reached down to the stones, and as I've said before, and I've said it on camera, it was unsettled. It was unsettled. No one will ever talk me out of it. It was unsettled. You could feel the sense of lack of resolution to what their lives needed to be, and the recognition of what they did, who they were, lost to their families, and incognito. I mean, it was without name and place. In Jerusalem, the monument to the 6 million is called Yad Vashem, which I'm told sort of means I will give you a name and a place. But here in Terezin, these lives were lost, and we don't know who is there. And you touch it, and it was unsettled, and it's consistent with what happened during the Dies Irae. Were those spirits telling us that they knew we were there, or were we singing to them and they were responding? Who knows? All I can tell you is that nature at that very moment sent a clear signal that was consistent with the music that we were making. It was remarkable, absolutely remarkable. So Terezin is an extraordinary place. I don't have the words. I would just say that it's a place of desperation. You feel the desperation. You feel that these people gave what they could while they could. They did not sit by the waters of Babylon and cry. They gave everything they could to each other. Terezin is often thought of as a showplace for the Nazis, but it wasn't. They did this for each other. There were only a few times, very few, that the Nazis brought people to see what was going on there. The most famous, of course, is the Red Cross visit, International Red Cross
Which
visit.
is in the film.
Yes, that sham that took place on June 23rd, 1944, where the International Red Cross Committee was in the pockets of the Nazis, and it was just Red Cross was compliant with the Nazis. They wanted a good report. So that's what that was. But aside from that, everything was dedicated to invigorating, enriching, calming, and inspiring their own souls.
Wow. Jeez. Well, having said that, and people hopefully will come see the documentary on Sunday. Let's just catch up with you a little bit. You're still at Catholic University?
Yeah, you want to make something of it? Oh, I'm sorry.
I do.
Maybe I should have phrased that
I do, because I wish you were here.
Oh, well, I miss Portland. You know, I haven't been back in a while, and I just drove in today from the airport and looked around, and every square block's got memories. I was here for 8 years on the staff of the Oregon Symphony during the wonderful, wonderful years of James the Priest, and a great privilege to be his cohort, and also to work with a wonderful orchestra. And so I had good years in Oregon, and I loved it. And but life is the way it is. We moved on, and now yes, I'm at Catholic University and I teach. I used to be dean. I stepped down after 8 years because I needed to spend a lot of time on the mission of exposing the legacy of terrorism, and that's really, I consider that to be the mission of my life.